I feel like we should be playing spooky music underneath this because it is
It's the
the
Halloween
TMT
episode, Jim.
the Halloween spooktacular.
What are you dressed up as, Stephen? Olivia and Cham at training? Is that what you're dressed
Yes,
up as?
I've come dressed as Olivia and Cham. Originally, my outfit was going to be a lot more detailed than this, but I was talked out of it at the last second. So
Yeah, mate, I know. I saw you. You had the old the face paint out, and we just thought, whoa, easy, big fella. Absolutely none of that.
imagine that. That was what got us cancelled.
I've come dressed up as don't know. Pick your shite.
Jerry
Celtic.
Craney.
Yeah, I've
Jerry
come dressed
Craney
as Jerry
from-
Craney.
yeah.
Pick your shite Celtic player of the day. Right, okay. There we go. We see the people coming in. You know the script. Bear with us. This is... see, I've noticed what some people do, Stephen, is they have a little graphic that goes up the stream saying, stream starting shortly, blah, 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 and all that sort of thing. I don't really go for that. I prefer the awkward filling
Yeah.
to the
We could do it
professional...
with some
to the
maybe like game show
graphic.
music, but in the background, just while we're setting up that kind of.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Captain Mediocre is in the room. Oh, good. The troops are coming in. People are getting earlier and earlier.
Good.
They know to look out for
Good.
it. Senator Docherty is in the room. Is Melly the Invisible Man? No, I think... Where is Melly, Stephen? He says
I don't know.
he was
He's
getting some sort of fancy dress or something ready.
He's unpredictable.
He is
Invisible
unpredictable.
Man, I watched that last night. Actually, it was quite good to see the updated thing that spewed over from the disastrous. What was that thing called again? The kind of dark universe. Remember that
The
fish that kicked off
Universal
with the mummy?
Monster Universe or something.
Yeah.
The Universe
They
Universe.
tried to do it with that. Yeah, it's the universe. But they ended up selling it to that Blumhouse thing, and it's actually quite good. I watched that last night as my Halloween film. Actually, fairly good.
Well, last night
About 40 minutes too long, right enough.
I watch every movie nowadays is 40 minutes too long.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I watched... What did I watch? I watched Thunderball last night because old Sean died.
R.I.P. This is today. Today we're going to do it for Sean, the turncoat hun bastard.
With the angles now.
Gonna get it back there.
Melly's
Yes,
looking
with the
better.
angles.
Any word on the Ayer injury? I think Neil Lennon was saying midweek, Damien, he needed surgery. Chris McGrath says, where's the tux, Jamie? I was going to wear the tux because obviously it's Halloween. I thought, well, why don't we do the dressing up thing? So I was going to wear the tux for... and then I thought, I don't need the tux. All I can do is just spark a snout live on air. You know, because Sean Connery famously smoked as James Bond, and they don't do that anymore because PC gone mad. Darren Dyer says,
Did you
1st
see
of November and not a poppy in sight on this broadcast.
I know, it's a disgrace.
Yes.
It's an
and that's the way
absolute
it will
disgrace.
stay.
Jamie, have you seen that Des thing? The thing about, was his name Dennis Nielsen, the Scottish serial killer
I
guy?
really
Have you seen
enjoyed that.
David
I
Tennant?
really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's
yes.
really good. Did you see the amount of complaints it got? Not because he was cutting guys' heads off and boiling them in pots and all that, but because they spent an awful lot of that series smoking. The amount of smoking in it's unbelievable, and it sparked, pardon the pun, like hundreds and hundreds of complaints about it.
I didn't see that. So I really enjoyed that. I don't usually like David... Melly.
Sorry, lads.
Melly, we said fancy dress, mate. You cannot wear that.
I'm not dressed up.
You can't wear that.
Fine.
It needs to go, mate.
He looks like he's got a beak through that, doesn't he? He looks like he's got Orville's beak.
See, when he said he was coming on his fancy dress, I expected something a bit more appropriate for a professional broadcast.
Oh,
Trying to
that'll
get a
be
bit
us
of
now.
effort in, lads, and this
Will
is
you-
what you get.
Were you trick-or-treating,
that'll
Melly?
be us now. We'll be on the
Aye.
front page of papers tomorrow. IRA loving fans media.
Here it works. I get hundreds of money. Somebody even gave me a phone, man. It was brilliant.
Oh, you're a bit too old for the old trick-or-treat me out bag snatching. Mind that. There's bag snatching. Oh, I'm so glad everyone wears the rifle. Sean Atkins said, Melly, have you dressed up as James McLean?
Yes. I should have worn my McLean top, actually.
Melly, we were just saying there, my outfit was ruined. I've actually come as Olivia and Cham. Initially, my outfit was going to be a lot more detailed than this, but I shot out of it at the last minute. I was talked out of going fully.
Right, I'll tell you something. You don't get gags like that in Premier Sports. You don't get
Right.
gags like that in Premier Sports. You won't be getting that in Premier Sports. Anyway, here we are. Hello and welcome to the live preview show. This is something new that we are doing for the 2020 season. We are here every single match day, 45 minutes before kick-off, to give you the big match build-up. And I'm, of course, joined by my two podcast pals, Melly.
Yes.
And Stephen.
Good afternoon, folks.
And this is an opportunity now, not another opportunity for Celtic to kick on, but rather, Stephen, an opportunity to build on what was a very good performance in parts against Lille.
Yeah, well, specifically on Aberdeen, if you're receiving this message, it's because I'm not here. I have replaced myself with last week's preview recording because quite unusually, I think for the first time, we go into domestic preview shows with the same opposition, and that opposition hasn't played anyone since having played Celtic, so it's quite difficult to talk about their form and stuff like that. But with regards to Celtic's form, I was very encouraged by the Lille performance for the most part. We'll talk about this more on Monday, but I thought there were a lot of, and I know we are sometimes guilty of saying this over and over again, there were shoots of positivity to take from it, but I thought it was a pretty good performance. I think, given the context, you can look at just the scoreline and when the goals were scored and think, well, Celtic have thrown away a lead there. But I don't think that tells the full story, to be perfectly honest. I think it was a much better performance than that gives it credit for. And if anything, once Ajer went off, Celtic deserve credit for surviving what felt like a bit of an onslaught for the last half hour. You know, it's not just a case of hapless Celtic chucking away a lead. I thought they were actually quite good, and individual performances were much better. Not across the board, but in general, some individual performances were much better than we've had recently.
Martin Melly.
Yes.
Would you like to build on what Stephen said?
He went through it all there. I was really impressed, especially first half. I think that was better than anything we've seen maybe last season under Neil Lennon at Celtic. So the performances are in there. It was a tough one. Lille haven't lost this season, so for Celtic to go there, be 2-0 up and come away with a point, still a decent result. But it'll look like a better result if we get the win today. If we go out and do what we've done previously and don't perform today, it will just be another game where it was false hope, whereas you're looking for another performance and victory today. So we know that's us kicked on. Do
you want another shoehorned in analogy, boys? One of my famous ones. We've already had the fishmonger analogy, which I'd shoehorned in. So here's another analogy. I feel like Neil Lennon is a boxer here, right? And he's been knocked to the ground, and the referee's given the 10 count, and I feel the referee hit the 6. And that Milan game was him starting to get to his legs, and then he fell over again. Then the Aberdeen game, that's one leg on the ground. And then the Lille game, that's the other leg on the ground. And the referee's at 7 right now, and he's just on the verge of standing right back up and getting himself into this fight, Melly. And he can come out swinging against this Aberdeen team and get back onto both feet, can't he?
He can. So that's some slow counting from the referee, but we'll take it. Lenny's back on his feet. Lenny's back on his feet, and it was a tough game against Aberdeen last week, as Stephen said. They've not played since, but this is a massive opportunity for Celtic now. Go out, and it's weird playing last season's Scottish Cup, but it's a good chance to get early silverware. And look, this is it, boys. This is the game. Big pitch at Aberdeen. It's not on their pitch. It's at Hampden today, so we can stretch the game, and I'm looking forward to it.
Here's the starting lineup, Stephen. It's Bain retains his place in goal. Duffy retains his place in the centre of defence beside Nir Bitton, who comes in. Scott Brown, Ryan Christie, Tom Rogic, Odsonne Edouard, Mohamed Elyounoussi, obviously fresh off the back of a double against Lille, Jeremy Frimpong, McGregor, and my left back, Diego Laxalt. Kieran Gallagher said, are you happy to see Rogic starting? Stephen, Rogic has history against Aberdeen. He's got history at Hampden. He's got history in the Scottish Cup. Happy to see him start?
He certainly has. A happy hunting ground, both in terms of opposition and location for Tom Rogic, of course. I'm happy to see Tom Rogic because I believe that on paper, if we disregard all the chat we've had before about how he hasn't really done an awful lot in the last 18 months to a couple of years for Celtic, I think that on paper he's the best number 10 Celtic have. I mean, Ryan Christie's a great player, so is Callum McGregor, so is Olivier Cham, but I think in terms of like a traditional number 10, a creative guy who can make things happen in that position in the centre of the park, I think he's the best we've got. I know that doesn't take into account current form because he's been in and out, but if you can get, it's the same logic you apply to anyone. Let's say Lee Griffiths, like if you get a fit and firing and focused Lee Griffiths, he's this, he's that. Same with Tom Rogic. If you get Tom Rogic fit and back on form, he's an absolutely great asset to have, and I think he's the best suited to link up that play from the number 10 position that we possibly have.
Melee, Louis159 says, are you ready for a Roderick masterclass? Are you?
Oh, he didn't play during the week, so hopefully he's coming in fresh. He has got a wee injury worry. Lennon said he spoke to a specialist after the game last week, so hopefully he can get back into it. But Rogic, look, bringing Rogic in after the midweek, it's a different game from the Lille game. The probably needed to be a bit more compact, but this game we can go at Aberdeen, and as we've seen in the past, he loves it against them. He absolutely loves it. Numerous goals, including the famous one at the very end of the Invincible treble.
Neil Lennon was in the media midweek talking about Shane Duffy, talking about some of the criticism that he got or gets is over the top. People call him a bomb scare, is completely wrong. This was prior to the Lille match. They actually did the press conference for this game prior to the Lille match, which was a bit strange. He says that Shane Duffy's just having a bit of trouble finding his feet. We move into the Lille match. On the preview show, we all spoke about it, and we kind of said, well, I said that Shane Duffy has to shit or get off the pot, amongst with a couple of other Celtic players, with reference to
El Yunusi being one, yeah. El Yunusi, and he coiled out a belter. You asked him to shit, and he squatted down and coiled out a monster. So no criticisms there.
No, absolutely no criticisms. But Shane Duffy again, a few shaky moments in the Lille game. Is it time to give him a spell out the team, Melly? When you look at the bench, though, there's no one to come in, so we're just going to have to persist with him, aren't we? We're just going to hope he works through this form on his own.
Yeah, he's an experienced guy. We keep saying it, but he can't keep making these mistakes. The Lille one, just stand off the guy. There's no need to. He's just being rash and making silly decisions that you make when you're low on confidence. He just has to get back to the basics, as simple as that sounds. I think he's a good player, but he's just maybe not form now. There is that problem where we don't have somebody to come in and replace him. If Beaton was here alongside Ayer, maybe we could give him a wee spell out, but we have to play him. He's just going to have to play through this, and he's coming up against an Aberdeen team. He knows what they're all about after last week. He's going to have the physical presence up against them, so I'm looking forward to seeing how he does today. Just don't do anything rash, Shane.
Shawnee Boy says
Jamie,
not shipping needless
preview.
penalties. Sorry, Stephen. Shawnee Boy said not shipping needless penalties to these sheep interfering tramps would be good. Shane Duffy's got a part to play in that as well, doesn't he?
Yes, Jamie, you asked me on the previous preview show that we did what Shane Duffy has to do, and I just basically said play better. But you know what he has to do? I think he just needs to calm down a wee bit, to be honest. Like, see the mistakes we're talking about now. They are now nothing to do with Celtic's style of play. Now, I've speculated recently that Celtic have brought in a player who is wholly unsuited to the way Celtic play in possession. Right, he's a backs to the wall defender that we are now expecting to play out with the ball and have a lot of touches throughout the game, and he doesn't suit that. But none of those things apply to some of the things he's doing now. He's just making very poor defensive decisions. That's what he's doing. So that can't be legislated for. You can't blame that on any coaching or style of play or anything like that. We can forget that. He's just not making the right decisions. I would apply it to what we've spoken about in the past when we've had strikers in the door who look too keen to impress. So, for example, Klimala running about daft and taking things on and shooting for everywhere and all that and trying to make a nuisance of himself. And Klimala's probably a poor example, but you know what I'm talking about. We've had it so many times over the years. We've just urged players to look, just settle down, just play your game, and it will come. And I would say the same about Duffy. Look, man, I know this is different. It's your dream move to your childhood club and all that sort of stuff, but just Kamsi, man, just like settle down and just play, because it's a very similar discussion to what we've had with Julian in the past when it came to playing against Livingston, playing against Kilmarnock. Look, man, you're the better footballer here. Yeah. Just settle in and let that show out. You don't need to be heroic all the time. You don't need to be making massive challenges and trying to nick the ball off players just outside the box as it transpired against Lille. Just everybody just settle down. And I think Ayer being out today is unfortunate, because I think Ayer has maybe been helping him out quite a bit. Ayer, whatever we think of him, has been probably our best defender in the last 3 or 4 months. Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
So I think we might end up with a kind of you don't know what you've got till it's gone case with Ayer recently. But I think Beaton can probably, hopefully, provide that calming influence beside him. Let him take care of all the football and work around about him. Duffy, just defend.
Captain Mediocre said Eddie is back. Big pitch for Moy and Rogic. Can he see anything other than a pumping for Aberdeen? Ooh. Hopefully now, after his stop-start to the season, French Eddie, Odsonne Edouard, Melly, back leading a line for Celtic, beyond the COVID, international breaks, out all the way. All he's got in front of him at the moment is runs of games and opportunities. Huge pitch, another player who loves to play in the big games. I'm just feeling super confident today, especially due to the return of Odsonne Edouard.
Yeah, the three behind Edward and obviously Edward himself, that will strike fear into any team, never mind Aberdeen. It's good to have him back. I don't know if he'll be able to last the full game, but we've got great options on the bench with Ayeti and Griffiths, so it's great to see him back. Also good to see him with guys behind him that are going to create things for him. If El Yunusi, Rogic and Christie will all create chances for him, they've got to, and we've got the two fullbacks as well bombing on now, so there's no excuses for Celtic anymore. The team's getting stronger, we're getting players back. It's time to go out and win the games, and Edward probably due a performance as well from him. He's not really done it this season apart from the first game of the season, so he's due one.
Stephen, what top are you wearing? Robert Graham is asking.
This is the training top from this was the Lisbon anniversary. Yep. It actually says 50th anniversario round the badge. We've had this discussion before, and I speculated that it was never available to buy. I don't think it was. I could never really track it down. I got it second hand off Tierney's. Yeah, it was. I got it second hand off eBay, and what I've always thought about this kit was that I think it was an admin error, and this should have been the third kit, and we ended up with 3 green strips in the same season. Right. This is much better than any of the away or third ones we had.
Shawnee Boy says lots of questions coming in today about Celtic's performance, as you might expect, and having opportunities to do this. Shawnee Boy 617 says, if we get a big result with a convincing performance, would you believe we have turned the corner? Personally, I wouldn't put it down to this one game saying we've turned the corner. I do believe Neil Lennon deserves the opportunity to get this right, to put things back on track. I think we all agreed on that unanimously on this podcast. What do you call it, Steve, when you've turned half a corner? I know you can't get half a corner, but this result here would be a half around the corner.
Have you turned the corner, but you've hit your shoulder off the wall, sort of thing, a wee bit, and it's turned you round? Right, okay. So I'm on board with this. It's right. We're in the midst of this difficult run of games that we talked about leading into it. This is chapter 5 of this. No won a game yet, right? We've not won a game in any of this tough run of fixtures. But I think the team and the manager deserves a little bit of leeway there, a little bit of context applied, and that there's a reason that they were all tough games. However, this represents a very good opportunity to turn the corner. This Celtic should be beaten. Aberdeen should have beaten them last Sunday as well. Yep. But this is a better opportunity. And I know Aberdeen are playing with confidence. They will be confident about this game as well. I think in a way both teams will be coming into this more confident than they were last Sunday, if that makes sense, because Celtic had a good performance in midweek, and because Aberdeen showed last Sunday that they can do it against Celtic, or at least compete. So Aberdeen have been good this season. I noticed they've got Cosgrove back today, and I think the only reason he's still at Aberdeen is because he got an injury just before he was about to leave, something along those lines. So it'd be just Celtic's luck for the only reason he's still at Aberdeen to be an injury, and he comes back and scores against us. But that I meant to say that actually with Duffy, that's going to be a test for him. That Cosgrove is a handful. He's not the greatest player in the world, but we do know he can cause problems. But on Celtic turning the corner, it's got to start today. It's got to, because this is a semi-final, extremely important. And I know we've had the discussion many times over the years. You don't take trophies for granted, and we won't win them all forever. But we're 2 games away from another one, and that's motivation enough. So we can forget all this stuff about how Neil Lennon's not motivating the players and the coaching and all that. They shouldn't need motivated for this. This is a semi-final and yet another trophy, last season's trophy albeit, but it has to start today.
Martin Melly, Celtic's record at Hampden is quite unbelievable at the moment. What is this? A win for us would see the 35th win in a domestic cup. The last time.
Remember the hoodoo days?
Aye, the last. Well, can you remember the last time that we lost a match at Hampden?
It was Ronnie Dyler, wasn't it? It was the Rangers game.
2016, we last lost a game at Hampden. We've actually faced Aberdeen once in each of the last 4 years in this competition, and we have beat them all times. All signs, Martin Melly, are pointing to a Celtic victory in the Hampden rain.
Yeah, look, the pitch isn't going to be great. There was a game on it yesterday. The weather's not great. It's an empty stadium, but it's a horrible stadium to play at. But Celtic, it feels like a second home now. We're there that often. We get the results that often. We just feel like we go there, we win, we move on. So I want to see the same today. There's no excuses anymore for Celtic. They've got all their big players back near enough. One or two drop out, but we're starting to see the squad looking strong. We're getting back to the 4-2-3-1, which I think we're more comfortable with. We know what Aberdeen are going to pose after last week, so it's down to Celtic. And I'm not expecting Celtic to go out and blitz this team today, because they could, but it's tough after a midweek game. We've travelled to France and came back. So even a win, any sort of victory will do the day in the old Hampden rain.
Violet Nala has asked, is the team up yet? So I'll just run through it one more time for anyone else that might not have seen it. It's Bain in goal, Duffy, Bitton, Brown, Christie, Rogic, Edward, Elinusse, Frimpong, McGregor and Laxalt. On the bench is Barkas, Taylor, Griffiths, Ayeti, Klamala, Sorrow, Turnbull and Cham and El Hamed. It's good to see some of the boys, Stephen, return from injury. Bitton obviously is one of them. El Hamed is another making his place on the bench. And we've already discussed Odsonne Edward. These players are going to come in key for us in these sticky periods, aren't they? The ability that we've got to drop players out and bring other players in could really be critical for us.
Oh, definitely. And I'm conscious when talking about these players coming back is that I don't want to do the standard, the other guys, the guys who aren't available are going to bail us out here. I know I'm careful about not doing that because I've been guilty of it myself in the very recent past where I talk about, getting El Hamid's going to be great because I'm such a big fan of him. But then I think he was the worst player in the park against Ferencváros, and so he is capable of a shanner or two. But what I would say is that having more good players available is never a bad thing. And guys like Bitton and El Hamid, Bitton maybe goes under the radar a wee bit. I'm a big fan of his as well. I know he's maybe not the answer at centre half, but at times in this season anyway, I think this season and maybe at times last season, he's been capable of being Celtic's best defender. As much as people still talk about him as if he's a midfielder playing that position, I don't buy into that anymore. No, there comes a time where the balance has been tipped and he's no longer worth talking about as a midfielder. I think he could still do a job there, of course, but he's, to all intents and purposes, he is a dedicated centre half now because he simply doesn't play there in midfield anymore. Guys like, you look across the bench, there's goals on there as well. Ayeti, who I thought was excellent against Lille. And it's something I was saying to you guys last night. I was talking about, I watched a little bit of the Liverpool game because as much as I wanted to support Scottish football and watch the Edinburgh Derby, tough going at times. I watched a bit of the Liverpool game and I was thinking about Roberto Firmino, and he's a guy who is established in this like top class front three, but he never scores goals. He hardly ever scores. It's always the other two, but he's there because he provides an absolutely key element that they can't replace. He just provides, he's just something different. And I thought you'd never get that in Scotland. You'd never get it in a million years. No one ever criticises Roberto Firmino because they can see what he does. Whereas Ayeti, if he's not scoring goals every single game, people are like, this guy's a flop. He's not the level we were expecting and all this pish. But look at his contribution against Lille. Absolutely crucial. Absolutely key to the goals. So I think he can be very important as well. I still would love to see him and Edward together. Maybe there's an opportunity to switch things up a wee bit in this game, but it depends. Apart from that, and Cham was good against Lille, I thought, but ran out of legs, so I didn't really expect him to play today. The bench actually looks pretty good to me. And Barkas on it as well, weirdly enough. Maybe worth talking about.
Robert Moffat says Scott Wright caused us a lot of bother last week. How do you think we should address it today?
We need to get tighter to him. We let him run off. It was the last goal at the end. He was the guy that went into the box, and Scott Brown, Turnbull both had chances to take him out. We need to be tighter to him. We can't let him run off, stand off him. We need to get in there and amongst him. I know it's not great football chat. They would get the dig in there, but that's what we have to do. He loves getting into the space. He loves running beyond. So we have to close him down quickly and get tighter to him.
It's not even just that. It's a question
Hedges
of...
was all right.
Sorry, Stephen. It's a question of concentration and organisation as well. A lot of these things that people think just shout the word dig and work harder. A lot of the time it's concentration, not ball watching, being organised, tracking your runner, knowing who your man is, Stephen, isn't it?
it was a discussion we had on Monday night about concentration. When we eliminate other things, when we eliminate the system and the having better players, it sometimes boils down to lack of concentration. And I think we saw a wee bit of that against Lille as well, particularly in their first goal.
Yeah.
Just switch off, and before you know it, the ball's in the back of the net. So that is something I think has been creeping into the Celtic team of late, despite the gradually improving performances. I think they are capable of just switching off a little bit at key moments, particularly Duffy, and that's not really something we should expect out of him. That's fairly inexcusable for a guy of his experience and level. So that I think that might be key, because the set pieces thing is starting to get back to the dark old days with Celtic, where every time you get a set piece against you, you start to go, oh, well, we could be up against it here. So I'd like to see that improved upon today.
Melly, set piece organisation. There's no denying that the set pieces have been a bit iffy for Celtic. Neil Lennon commented it in his midweek press conferences that we're starting to look a bit iffy at set pieces. But that's one of these things that I would maybe be looking at the manager for. You know, it's Neil Lennon spoke a lot about individual errors and individual things letting him down in the last Aberdeen game. But when it comes to things like set piece, defending set pieces, and even attacking set pieces, that's really down to the manager and working on that in the training pitch, isn't it?
Yeah, we really have to improve in it. Some teams, like Midtjylland, they have a set-piece specialist. They actually won the league last season, and 49% of their goals came from set pieces. So that's incredible. Right? Imagine Celtic done that. We'd qualify for the Champions League. We'd win the league at a canter if we could just get... It's not just a set-piece guy, like a long throw guy. It's working on it. So it can pay dividends if you get it right. So Celtic need to do it at both ends, because we have seen them lose a couple of goals from set pieces, and we know Aberdeen, that will be their main threat today. That's what they'll be looking for. With Ayer out, it gives us a wee bit of height, because Beaton is maybe not as strong as him, and as we know, the two fullbacks aren't the biggest for Celtic, so we will need to be on our game, and guys like Edward will come back for a bit of height, but we have to, as you say, Jamie, it's all about concentration rather than height for me.
There's the overriding chat, quite unbelievably, from what I can gather, from what I can see rather, in our conversation here with the viewers, the live chat, is the Lennon out stuff. It is just all, is this Lennon out? Robert Graham says, I'll ask the question I asked on Thursday. How important is this game to us and Neil Lennon? Minty framed it a different way by saying the Lennon out chat will inevitably rear its head if we lose today. So my question is, would it be justified, considering this is last season's competition? It is a bit of a weird one. You know, last season's competition, we should be, you know, it's an important competition, there's no doubt, and I feel myself more excited for this game than I would for a regular league game or a regular cup game against Aberdeen, because this is quadruple treble territory. This is real history, and you know, whether he likes it or not, there probably is a lot of pressure on Neil Lennon Melly if he was to lose this game, regardless of it being last year's competition or this year's competition. It's a big match. Quadruple treble is no joke.
It's not, and it's something that we've spoke about before on the podcast, that at one point Celtic aren't going to win every trophy. So the first person or the first match that happens, it's going to be a big deal. And right now, it's probably a bigger deal just because of the form. Like, I've never seen Celtic go 5 matches without winning in my life. It's not really thinkable anymore because Celtic are so dominant. It's one that Neil Lennon just has to win today. That's why I'm not too worried about the performance. He just has to win it and get to the final by himself. Some time with some fans. I'm willing to give him to the international break. I think we've seen on Thursday a marked improvement. So if he gets another win today, it might just silence some of the doubters. But at the end of the day, he's just got to win the day. He cannot get beat, because it will just cause it all to come rear its head, as the listeners were saying.
I think we've covered the Neil Lennon out thing, Stephen. I think, you know, I think that's been fired at us for every conceivable angle. I think we've maybe put a wee pin in that. Rory Anderson comes back with a change. Oh, sorry, have you got some to add on that?
Well, one thing I would say on it is I think we all broadly agreed on Monday, I think it was, that one more domestic defeat would be cause for serious questions to be asked, if not the final nail. Now, I try to, as best I can, as a content creator, as an artist, I try not to just blow whichever way the wind is going. I try and stick to some sort of, you know, form of my guns, right? I try and stick to something. But what happens when you're doing a podcast all the time is, like, performances change your opinions, whether it's 10% of a change. what I saw in Lille was enough to make me think, do you know what? As Melly would say, green shoots of positivity in there. So am I coming into this game thinking exactly the same as I did on Monday prior to that game? Am I thinking a domestic defeat and you're gone? Maybe not, but I think to lose another domestic game against Aberdeen would be very difficult to make a case for. It would be very difficult to defend, to be perfectly honest. And I know we can sit here just now and say, everything's fine. No, there's no lining out feelings here. But is that going to be different in 2 hours' time when we've been eliminated from a semi-final against Aberdeen, when we've already spoken tonight about how you need to win this? Like the motivation's already there. The motivation's there for Aberdeen as well, of course, because they could be the first team to stop Celtic winning a trophy. But putting it into context, if they lose this game, it's going to be very difficult for us to mount a defence of the manager and the players, to be perfectly honest. I know that seems awfully harsh, but it is the reality of being Celtic.
Christopher Conahan says, is there a worry that Aberdeen will start Cosgrove unbeaten to rough him up? And Stephen, Christopher Conahan also asked another question. To wit, I am just going to say to you, Umbrescu. Yeah. I get that. I think that's what Melly called someone in the last Christopher Conahan, Melly, back to Christopher's real question. Cosgrove on Bitton. I think Bitton likes to get stuck in, doesn't he?
Yeah, I'm not really worried about that. I think Cosgrove he'll just naturally go towards Bitton because he thinks he'll be the easier target, but it's not really something I worry about. I've never had a big qualms about Bitton playing at the back. He seems to get stuck in. He's great on the ball, as we know, and he just, whenever you've put him in there, it's a big performance from him in a big game. We've seen it at Ibrox last season. We've seen it numerous times that he can just do it. The only issue with him is he can't stay fit long enough to get a run in the team. But I'm not really worried about that at all. I think Cosgrove will cause problems, but between him and Duffy, they'll be able to sort it for me.
Prediction time,
I don't
boys.
think Bitton is a... Oh, sorry. Just one final thing before we move on from Bitton. I don't think Bitton is a soft touch. I think that's just perception based on what we've spoken about as well, where he's not considered a real defender.
Because he's a number 10, Zidane-like.
Yeah. I don't think Bitton is a soft touch at all. There was a European game fairly recently. They've all kind of blended into one because of the standard of opposition. It was maybe Sarajevo or Riga, where it was Bitton. He was the one who set the physical tone. He put in a crunching tackle in the first couple of minutes, and I thought, you know what, he deserves his spot here. So I've never had any worries about Bitton being a softie. I don't think he's Mikael Lustig in that regard. I don't think he's a guy to be targeted for the physical stuff. So no worries there at all. Certainly not from Cosgrove, who is a big lump, but Bitton's a better player.
We're approaching kick-off. That means it's prediction time. The predictions are coming in. Everyone, I'm firing them up on the screen. Overwhelmingly a Celtic win. Most people going for 3 or 4 goals. Some people think Aidan thinks it'll be a tight game. GP Flawless says 6-2 Celtic. JP, I would love that. That's what we need. That's what Neil Lennon needs, a 6-2. Melly, I'm coming to you first for your prediction. Scottish Cup semi-final, going for the quadruple treble against Aberdeen. If we were at Hampden and the fans were all in the stadium and we're walking up to the game right now, as we should be, you'd be feeling a lot more confident about this game than you are at the moment, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it would be. I'd be saying Celtic 3-0, but as that's not the case, we had a tough game during the week, I'll go Celtic 1-0.
Celtic 1-0, Stephen.
3-1 at the hoops. I think, it finally clicks up front today. Tom Rogic gets at least 1. In fact, 2. He gets 2 today.
I'm going to
Jamie, you're going for 2 in a row here, by the way.
I know, I got the old Desmond last week. No. I got Desmond against Leo, didn't I? Predicted the old 2-2 against Leo. 3-0 Celtic. 3-0 Celtic. I fancy it today. I think the team fancy it. Odsonne Edward fancies it. It's been a long time since Odsonne put in a shift. He needs to get his arse in gear and do this. Right. Thank you so much for joining us on this live preview show. We'll be here every single week, 45 minutes before kick-off, joined by Stephen. Are you signing off?
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Yes, goodbye, folks. I will see you after the game. Enjoy.
And Melly.
I'm still here. Thanks, folks.
Thanks so much, guys, and we'll speak to you on the reaction.